There's a list I have that I've read, and some of you have heard it, but it's the best way I know to do it. If you go back in history by a factor of 10 to the year 199, the amount of data that existed in the world then would fit on one shelf in your library. There's the two Testaments, the early rabbinic writings, the early church writings, Greek and Roman literature, Buddhist, Confucius, Zoroastrian, Sumerian, Roman and Greek, some Vedas maybe from India, Scandinavia. That's it. It would fit on one shelf in your library. The amount of data that exists in the world today is logarithmically, exponentially, so much greater. There's no way of possibly comprehending it. And with computers today, every time a new bit of information is conceived, it immediately cross-pollinates with all existing information and doubles. And that happens every nanosecond, every millionth of a second. So now ask yourself, if you go forward in history by a factor of 10 to the year 19,940, how much data will exist in the world then? It will outweigh the planet. There's no conceivable way that anybody could deal with it. Someone will get up in Rochester on the Hill in the year 19,940 and give a presentation on leadership and say, and I've gone all the way back to the beginning of recorded history in order to substantiate what I'm saying, and as you all know, the beginning of recorded history is conventionally accepted to be the year 10,000. Because nothing of significance could have possibly been thought of before then. Life was too primitive on this planet. That's 5 times where we're at now. Within that context, what is a universal? Religion is supposed to be about universals. Instead, members of the helping professions are given a fix, as I said last night and today, and wind up in the substance abuse of imbibing data and technique. And all members of the helping professions are just constantly trying to learn more about new methods and new techniques and get more data to substantiate what they do. And I have this list which I've read before, some of you have heard, but it's the best way to do it. I one day sat down and made a list of all the categories of symptoms that I could become an expert on, or that I maybe should be knowledgeable about if I'm going to work with families. So here it is alphabetically. In other words, I will get notice of a book or a conference on one of these things every year, maybe more than once a year. Abortion, adoption, aging, asthma, anorexia, attention deficit disorder. That's A. Conflict resolution, dying, communication, depression, grief, living with. Preschoolers, latency phobias, school-age phobias, adolescents leaving home and learning disabilities. Under marriage, blended family, single-parent problems, remarriage, divorce, marital stress, and intermarriage. Pain, under personalities, schizophrenias, borderlines, obsessives, and hysterics, under phobias, planes, trains, being alone, and so on. Psychosomatic ailments in the head, and the gut, and the skin. Sexuality issues, identity, impotence, premature ejaculation, frigidity, vaginismus, homosexuality. Under substance abuse, drugs, food, liquor, children, so on. Techniques of stress management, handling shyness, loneliness, intimacy, growth, creativity, violence. Today in, I don't know if it's the Wall Street Journal or I think it's the lead article in the Wall Street Journal, that drug companies are going to push obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, they gave it a name, because they've got a drug that they think deals with it. Where would this world be if it weren't for the obsessive compulsive people, you know? But we're going to have another disorder. The DSM-4, the diagnostic manual, which is about to come out, I believe rejected 100 new disorders, but may include 100 new syndromes. What is that way of thinking about? What does that do to the way we organize our thinking about life? The problem is that's only one column. This is a Chinese menu where you get to choose from 4 different columns, okay? Because the second column is, assuming you've picked the subjects you want to become an expert on, what school are you going to use? Will it be psychoanalysis, behavioral, or family therapy? And if it's psychoanalysis, will it be Freudian, Jungian, Adlerian, Leo-Sylvanian? And if it's behavioral therapy, will it be Skinnerian, Walpian, Ericksonian, Gestalt, transactional, Rogerian, or group? And if it's family therapy, is it system, structural, strategic, transgenerational, and all the other names that are coming out? Plus, dance therapy, massage therapy, play therapy, acupuncture, and traditional acupuncture. You can be high church and low church acupuncture. Now, then we would assume you might narrow it down by choosing a particular member of the family, such as wife, husband, father, son, oldest child, middle child, adopted child, and so on. And if you're really going to be sophisticated, then you ought to know something about the background. So the 4th column is Appalachian, Black, Chinese, German, Greek, Hispanic, Irish, Jewish, Italian, Mexican, Puerto Rican, Spanish, Vietnamese, lower class, middle class, upper class, and so on. Baby boomers, whatever you want. It can't be that the Holy One thought we'd have to have this much data in order to function effectively. That just can't be. What I want to emphasize is that this is a focus on pathology. Okay? What I want to emphasize again is the focus on pathology has no natural limits to data. I have shown this to engineering friends of mine and said to me, I could come up with that for engineering. I've shown it in business, to business people. I say, oh, I can come up with a list of that too, you know, the learning organization and all the other kinds of new types of organizations that you're supposed to have. I'm not as knowledgeable about all the categories. What is this about that is happening in our civilization? What kind of model is this that assumes that if you just keep fractionating things into more and more fundamental categories, you get a deeper understanding of life? That is what our civilization is caught up in. As I was saying earlier today, I think that's related to the anxiety in society. I think the focus on pathology is a symptom of the anxiety in society. Anxious systems can tend to go that way. They don't focus on strength. Well, is there another way of dealing with this than just imbibing data? Now, for those who were here this afternoon, I did begin to talk that way when I talked about preaching from an I position. I did start to suggest, and a lot of you missed the wonderful Star Trek thing this afternoon, but in that Star Trek thing, I was also trying to show you, again, the possibility that transformation is possible without knowing a lot.